Niners. The Browns did not make good plays in this one. There was a fumble by Odell late on a wild punt return. So let's hear from them coming up way short at the Big Denim. Here's Baker and here's Odell after lost 3 on the season.
You know, anytime you stop yourself, which is it seems to be our biggest problem right now. You know, obviously, when you do that against a team that's of that caliber, you're not going to have a lot of success.
You know, they beat us every phase of the game. They ran the ball down us. They stopped us on defense. They made plays on special teams. They just did everything. So we all saw the game, and we need to go back, reevaluate, and get ready for next week.
Now, you might be waking up and you might have missed this. Our very own Michael Silver talking to Richard Sherman after the game about Baker Mayfield. He said, what's amazing and annoying was him not shaking hands at the beginning. That's some college stuff. It's ridiculous. We're all trying to get psyched up, but shaking hands with your opponent, that's NFL etiquette. And when you pull Bush League stuff, that's disrespectful to the game. And believe me, that's going to get us fired up. He went on to say he hasn't earned anything in this league. How many games has he won? He's acting like he was the MVP last year. If Patrick Mahomes did that, it would be one thing, but he would never do that because he has too much respect for the game. And when you see a guy who doesn't, you humble him every chance you get because eventually he will have respect for the league or he'll be out of it. Nate.
Yes.
Nobody can speak to this at this table better than you about the etiquette, the respect for the game, and how this affects opposing players.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield has done things a certain way since he's started playing football. This dates back to high school, college, and now the pros. I understand that we don't want Baker Mayfield to change. And you can't tell a guy to do a certain thing that he is typically doing before every game because it gets him hyped. Mm-hmm. But there is a certain sense of etiquette that every player has, and it's more of a level of respect that I have for the other guy. Even if I went to a game that was division rivalry up against a guy that I didn't like, who I had bad blood with, if we wanted to approach each other before the game and one of us extended our arm, you'd have to shake that hand.
And if the other person doesn't?
Then you're going to look at that individual, and that small target that they have on the back becomes so much larger. And that's what Richard Sherman is saying. He's saying, we all know what type of dude Baker Mayfield is, but when he continues to do things like this, that target that we already have on his back, it becomes larger, and more people want to aim at it. What I do know about Baker is, you know, he's doing these commercials now for an insurance company,
sure,
right? And it's this is my house, I must protect it, right? And the house of the Cleveland Browns is now Baker Mayfield's. And it's funny because last year, he was the insurance policy to Tyrod Taylor. And now all of a sudden, you don't have an insurance policy. It is just you. And right now, there's flooding, there's earthquakes, there's every bad thing that can happen to the home of the Cleveland Browns, and you are the man of the house, and you have to act accordingly. I say act like a man on and off the field because your talent isn't being shown right now. Only thing that's showing up is that attitude.
A lot of criticism of Baker. I find it fascinating that comes from Richard Sherman. He's one of my favorite players in the league. Very smart, very wise. I like everything about him. He's still a great player. I don't think he has a great memory. He's talking about NFL etiquette. I remember a young Richard Sherman, before he'd really done anything in this league, walking up on Tom Brady, the greatest player in the history of the league, and turning it into a "you mad bro" meme. Baker Mayfield's in commercials. How many commercials has Richard Sherman been in for pistachios, and he's feeding beef jerky to Stephen A. Smith in somebody's stomach? Why? Because on national television, he decided to take his moment and trash another player directly after the game and say he was sorry. Listen, he's not getting those endorsements because he's a really good defensive back for the Seahawks. He's getting it because he took shots, because he believed in himself, because he said, screw the etiquette. Baker Mayfield can do whatever the hell he wants. He has to. You reap what you sow. But Richard Sherman, of all people, knows that a young, brash, determined player sometimes breaks the rules of etiquette.
And I think this is what the Browns drafted. They knew they were getting this, and all the stuff with etiquette and kind of with Kyle on this, like, Baker Mayfield is the outlier. He doesn't play by those rules. He's never played by those rules. So if he doesn't want to shake Richard Sherman's hand before a game, I can't fault him for that. That's what gets him up. On the flip side of it, though, when you get players extra hype because of it and they're planting flags and they're trying to hit you,
better be good.
You better be good.
Yeah.
And Baker Mayfield hasn't been very good. And I'll tell you what, 8 for 22 or 100 yards in an NFL game.
Yikes.
I don't know if Russell Wilson's ever had that game. I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo's ever had that kind of game. You need to back it up because now there's a target on your back. And that includes calling out all the different players, whether you were quoted wrong or not, Daniel Jones, that thing, that resonated around the league. Like, don't talk about another player. And finally, when the NFL flies you to Boston to film the NFL 100 commercial with Tom Brady as if you're the guy taking the torch and you're the next face of the league, that stuff resonates. You want to wear that bad boy, I'm the underdog, Colin Cowherd, bring it, all these things, Skip Bayless, bring it. You need to also realize that players around the league are going to out to get you and bring you down, and that might elevate their game. He was humbled last night, and I think in the postgame, he had very little to say, and I think a lot of people around the league enjoyed watching that version of it.
Does it change how we will approach the game? Because it worked for him last year, right? Being brash, it worked for his entire college career. He was successful, and there are people this morning saying, listen, if he did that last night and they won the game, we'd be praising him for how bold he is and his energy and his self-confidence. It's not that way when you start losing and when you struggle. And it's not that he's had a bad game. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in 2019. Yeah. He's having a terrible year among the other starters, and this is why I don't like it when quarterbacks are brash or because the wins and the losses are worn around your neck week to week, and you have that target anyway, so it's not working for him, this brash behavior. I'm asking you, Kyle, not if you think he should change it, because I know you don't think that. Yeah. Do you think he will?
He might. He might be immediate into it. I hope he doesn't. Because, listen, this is a tough position for me. I bet on Baker because I say no matter what he does, it works. Number one pick, change the Browns. It's not working. I will say there's something kind of funky going on about this. If you remember Baker in college, aside from the flag planting incident, the one thing that really set him off was against Kansas when he grabbed his crotch. What prompted him to grab his crotch? The Jayhawks refused to shake hands with him at the coin toss, which of all things is not a sin I would have him commit. And is there video of this? Is there possible that there was a misunderstanding about what was an intended handshake? Did Richard Sherman reach his hand out and Baker Mayfield backed away from it? I'm a little skeptical of this. There's a million cameras on the Monday Night
Kyle's right.
See.
Monday Night Football has 1,000 cameras.
Where's the shot of this?
And pregame, they'll capture anything Baker Mayfield's doing. There was no video evidence.
Sometimes it gets messy during handshakes, and Kittle said that he did dap him up. So where's the Sherman?
Here's the thing. When it comes to Baker Mayfield, sometimes the perception of who he is can change depending on who's looking at him. Because if you're a player that plays with him, he's an awesome leader. I'm a wide receiver. I would love to play for Baker Mayfield because that's the type of dude I like. But if you're playing against Baker Mayfield, your perceptions might fog his intentions. So Baker Mayfield might not have went on the field thinking, I'm not shaking anybody's hand. Maybe he was just in his zone. Maybe he was listening to music. Maybe he was getting ready for the game.
But if he did that, that's irresponsible of Sherman to trash him for dissing him, which maybe he didn't.
But the perception of Baker Mayfield around the league, I think this is a very bold statement. But I feel like, I don't want to use the word hate it, but I feel like Baker Mayfield is the most...
Polarizing?
Not polarizing. I think the most targeted player out of quarterbacks. The 32 quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield has the largest target on his back, and I think defense are saying, we want to humble that dude. We want to serve him humble pie every chance that he gets. I'm tired of the commercials. I'm tired of him being smug. I'm tired of him acting like he runs the world. He hasn't done anything, hasn't made the playoffs. He's been in this league a year, and he's just scratching the surface of what this NFL journey is. So I think that's what makes this whole thing very clouded.
4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He is ranked 32nd in passer rating of all of the quarterbacks. So something needs to be done here. And I'm sure his coach has to be mentioned in the equation with Freddie Kitchens. And that's what this Browns team is and isn't doing out there on the field. Maybe we will hear from Baker Mayfield. Excellent points all around. And we will dig in further to Freddie Kitchens and his sort of role in what's going on with Cleveland, Believeland, and a team that we thought that would certainly exceed last year's expectations.
And still in good shape in the AFC North.